But I decided to do this work because I see people still in poverty, still in the system. And that's why I think the crypto world, the Bitcoin world is on fire in both positives and negatives, is because people see there's a problem. Something is wrong. And we're told, do this, it'll be okay, and blah, blah, blah. And we're waking up to a lot of things. And really, what I like to do is help people take control of their own financial future. Don't just give it to somebody else to say, you do it. That's kind of why we're in the situation that we're in as a world.
Welcome to Tech Intersect. I'm your host, Tanya Evans, and my life and work exist at the heart of law, business, and technology. Yeah, I've earned a few fancy titles and degrees over the years, but the bottom line is I'm a writer, speaker, teacher, and lifelong learner. And I'm really excited that you've joined me on this journey. So what is Tech Intersect? Well, it's authentic, empowering conversations with really interesting guests who demystify complex topics to prepare you for the future. Because your future is now. And it exists where law, business, and tech intersect. Get ready to listen, learn, and leverage. Let's get started. In this episode of Tech Intersect, I speak with Brandon Neely, an entrepreneur, profit first and bank on yourself professional, the co-host of Wealth Wisdom Financial Podcast with his amazing wife, Amanda Neely. They share their experiential knowledge through podcasting, through their YouTube channel, and through personalized financial strategies for individuals and couples and profitability strategies for businesses. I invited Brandon on to discuss steps we can take to create a smarter, more stable financial future, and to share some of his best practices and tools to cultivate a wealth wisdom mindset. We'll talk about all of that and more in a moment, but first, Brandon, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Professor Tanya.
Awesome. Well, this is one of my favorite topics, and I love the work that you're doing. It's aligned a lot with the work that I do. I spend a lot of time talking about the future of finance as a matter of freedom, but there's something that comes before that, and that's building a solid foundation right where we are. You know, my mom and my grandmother, when she was here, used to talk about just start where you are with what you have. And that always resonated with me because so often I hear, and maybe you hear it as well, people say, when I get to ... then I will begin. But I think there's power and agency just starting where you are. So Let's definitely talk about that as we get to know you better and your work. So in fact, what inspired you to work to empower folks with wealth wisdom? We'll start here and then we'll get to the next.
Personally, I used to own a coffee shop. My wife and I did not come from a well-off place. We came from poverty, actually. And we were thinking about starting a business to change the world. Ethical economics and community building. Coffee was the second most widely traded commodity. Americans, the number one consumer. And yet they were poor countries. And we were like, somebody needs to do something about that. So that's why we ended up in the coffee world. Our business name was Overflow. The problem with Overflow, though, was and you know, as a business owner, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't overflow to other people.
Absolutely.
And that's what's really challenging in our world of entrepreneurship is we're like, yeah, well, you could do it. It's okay. You'll get paid later. You do it because you love it, you know? And I'm like, well, no, but if I don't take care of me, I can't overflow to other things. And That was something that we learned a lot about. You know, certain things happen that really almost broke our marriage, business, just because it's hard. And so we learned these things. We ended up meeting my mentor and now friend along the way. We started this thing called a whole life insurance policy. They call it infinite banking yourself. We didn't know that it was a taboo topic. We just knew our biggest risk was us. Our biggest investment was us. If something happened to me, which almost did a couple times because of having business, staff, stress, and all that stuff. Well, if something happened to me, I needed to make sure that my wife would be made whole, the business would still be okay, all of that stuff. And so life insurance, in essence, was helpful. But having the ability to access it in case I needed it for emergencies like a flood in the business. Literally,
Mm-hmm.
they took off the roof and it rained, which really, I don't, recommend those kind of things
Right.
happening, but got a call from my staff saying, you need to come in. The store is falling apart.
Mm.
And we're like, you're just being dramatic. But literally, it was falling apart. And my wife was 4 months pregnant. We found out later at the time. But I decided to do this work is because I see people still in poverty, still in the system, and that's why I think the crypto world, the Bitcoin world, is on fire in both positives and negatives. Is because people see there's a problem, something is wrong,
Right.
and we're told do this, it'll be okay, and blah blah blah, and we're waking up to a lot of things. And really, what I like to do is help people take control of their own financial future. Don't just give it to somebody else to say you do it. That's kind of why we're in the situation that we're in as the world.
Absolutely.
We've delegated to somebody else and said you figure it out for me, and we don't actually want to take responsibility. That doesn't get me a lot of listeners on our channel.
Well, we'll get you a lot on this one. I know people are listening right now and they're saying, Amen, brother. Amen.
But it's true. Like, take responsibility. I mean, we have one planet, we have one life to live. We can't go back and say, well, I wish I would. And so, the way I think about it when it comes to building and reverse architecting or thinking about my life, I want to begin with the end in mind and work backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love the life insurance as a cornerstone, because that's working backwards to protect my family. In essence, that's what life insurance is for, is protecting widows and orphans. And then I want to have income. And then I build the foundation to be able to do things like buy a commercial real estate office or buy a house, those kind of. Anyway, I said a whole lot there. So.
This is good because it talks about, and I spend a lot of time on the show and also at Advantage Evans Academy with my coaching and my community, focusing more broadly on this concept of autonomy, self-sufficiency, and foundation. And that can be spread and should be spread across assets. So
Yes.
yes, I'm a crypto educator, but I think of it also at a higher level of what are the tools and assets and resources that I need to have the life that I want. Part of my meditation this morning, for example, was, in my ideal world, I create rest and play for myself while my assets are out working.
Yeah.
I want my assets working out harder than me so that I can rest, take care of mind, body, spirit, play, actually connect with the people I'm walking on the earth with while I have them here. And so financial resources and assets become a key part of that. So what does that look like? You've identified one quiver in the whole set that focuses on not just a term life component, but also the ability to invest and to be able to draw on it as well. It's one thing, and you made the point about taking care of orphans and widows, et cetera, right? People were getting term life for a certain period of time. And then when that time ran out, you paid into it. And if you didn't die, I'm glad you didn't die, but you also don't have anything to show for it, right? So there's always this constant debate and push and pull. And I know as a lawyer who started in trust and estates work, there was always this pull and push between, do people want or need just term or something more robust that they could use as an investment vehicle. It was easy for people who are moneyed and come from money to poo-poo this idea of the average person accessing something that we all know. And if you have the blessing to have a job that affords you insurance as well, even better. But they feel like it's too easy to poo-poo it without appreciating what the rest of us have to work with in terms of a home, insurance, and other investments. So maybe you've heard that as well.
Yeah, and really for me, whenever I think about like buying an asset like a house, and then we take a HELOC out of it.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between buying a life insurance policy that's properly designed and taking out a policy loan on that? Well, actually, the interest rate's a little cheaper. And the way I kind of think about it is, okay, and Dave Ramsey will say, well, yeah, but it's your death benefit. I'm like, no, it's an advance. The cash value is an advance of your death benefit, right? And so it's kind of like the equity in your house is the same thing as the cash value whenever you take a line of credit, right? So the only difference is I'm the house, right? And I'm more valuable than the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and do that, and then I use it as a foundational non-correlated asset. I use that to then buy something else, whether it's real estate. If I understand the crypto world, I have people that have used their policies cash value to do something in that space, right?
Absolutely.
And it's non-correlated. Now, if that thing goes in a positive or negative way, they're able to bounce back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, and I have this rock here. We put these rocks here on purpose. It's and I know you guys aren't watching this as a video, but we put these rocks. They're called cairns in place. Like in the Old Testament of the Bible, they would stack rocks and do these monuments, but you have to have the big rock on the bottom, and then you build up from that. This is a foundational asset that helps you create other bigger, different rocks, right? And the problem is in our Wall Street world, we flip the rocks and we wonder why
Mm.
it's not working so well. Well, grandma's generation, they were savers first, right? They understood how that worked and they didn't spend money that they couldn't afford to lose, right? And so that's the challenging that we need to go back to is saying, okay, how do we live with less, knowing that the system, Bitcoin, crypto, all that is here to stay. We're in the wild west of it,
Mm-hmm.
but it will impact us, every one of us.
Right.
And so understanding that, but life insurance and annuities have been around for a long, 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 long time. That's why I like working with attorneys and professionals like you, right? Because the power of a contract is amazing, and being able to use that and leverage it to grow wealth. I know my contract. That's super powerful too.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. And I agree with you. And I hadn't really thought through it in this way, but it does remind me of a part of Will's Trust and Estates that I practiced and also taught in law school. And it's what happens when you die and kind of the difference between a probate asset and a non-probate asset. And so what you're describing is something that operates by contract rather than having to go through a system and ultimately
Yep.
be disseminated. That on the occurrence of that unfortunate but inevitable day, things happen and you get to say what happens and people don't have to wait until an estate is settled. For example, it operates by contract. There are kind of three
Yep.
ways that things can operate: by contract, by law. And that is very powerful because you can get access to benefits sooner than later. And oftentimes that's critical when someone passes.
And you know this better than I do because you studied it more. But probate is one of the most inefficient areas in our financial system, and people don't even think about it.
Right.
And I'm like, maybe we should begin with the end in mind, and then we'd have a lot less stress in our world. But I think that that's, again, listening to this, like learning and build your foundation. The thing I kind of go back to is thinking about the world is in, and I have acronyms. I think of acronyms, and this helps remind me, and I'm a person of faith, but the world is in chaos, and this chaos is confusing, haphazard, anxious, overwhelming, and stressful. The reason we have even attorneys to help disseminate even taxes and all that is because it's confusing, haphazard, anxious, overwhelming, and stressful. And I think it's by design, actually.
Right. A feature, not a bug.
Yeah, that we have to realize that is happening. And if we want to understand, this is why you understand and listen to podcasts like this, because if you want to understand how the future world of money is going to be, you need to educate yourself and learn to be able to make smart decisions.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tanya M. Evans, author of Digital Money Demystified. And I want to let you know that to stay on the leading edge of any opportunity, especially investing, you have to empower yourself with the tools and resources needed to keep your knowledge and skills current. And if you're relying on last year's information or even last month's, look, you're already behind. Sure, you can try to figure this out on your own at YouTube University. The problem is, it's difficult to separate fact from fiction with so many carnival barkers banking on your inexperience. And of course, there are the naysayers, usually from legacy finance, banking on your fear, while they quietly help their high net worth clients to invest. All of it muddies the waters when all you want to know is how to get in safely, legally, and confidently so you're not left behind. That's why I wrote Digital Money Demystified, where I take the top 10 crypto myths head on and give you well-researched, well-supported facts to empower you to make good choices out there in the new digital cash economy. As a law professor who developed the first blockchain crypto and law online certificate program, a retail and corporate crypto policy and education trainer, and a thought leader appearing regularly on national media, I've done the heavy lifting so you don't have to. Look, there are plenty of books and courses on which crypto assets to invest in. Digital Money Demystified is the book you read before you dive into those. So head to digitalmoneydemystified.com to learn more and prepare for the future of money and wealth today.
What we have to do is think about, again, the still method, which is what we call it, and that's set your sights. And again, I'm going back to going and retreating, asking, what do you want? What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? Why do you have this money and what's the point of it? Track your in and out, inspect your progress, look for 1% adjustments, and live deliberately. If we did those things, you realize we wouldn't be buying the next iPhone 11 or 12 or I don't know what number we're on.
Wherever we are, right?
Yeah, wherever we are. But we're usually buying things because the world says, hey, Chaos, you need this. This will make you happy. Whereas here, if we understand what it is we want and we move into that, we will be in a healthier place, building a good foundation. But if we don't reverse architect our goals, I'm not even talking about life insurance. I'm just talking about thinking about what we want. Then the life insurance piece, properly designed, right? You want to make sure it's done right, will just feed into the bigger picture of what you want to accomplish. I feel like I'm a therapist when I work with my clients.
Absolutely. Because it really does come down to mindset. And that actually was going to be my next question. What are some of the common pitfalls or what I would consider to be mindset mistakes? I hesitate to use that word, but it's the word that's coming to me. What's keeping people from the life that they want? What's keeping people from moving through those wonderful acronyms that you have to get them from where they are today to where they want to be and where they desire to be, and really the promise of how we should ultimately be, right? What's the impediment?
Yeah, I think we've delegated it to somebody else because we don't want to think. Again, I will go back and say, we need to think for ourselves. Don't just give it to a financial advisor and say, you do it for me, or even an attorney or a tax person. Understand a little bit, because I know you're an ethical attorney, right? But not everybody is. And so understanding that and taking 100% responsibility for your own actions and this idea of selfishness, I think that's why we're in our situation. It's greed and fear. That's how the market is designed. It's greed and fear.
Right.
Do we want that? haven't signed up for that.
Right.
So I want to play it, but then I'm part of the system. We all are part of the system.
Right.
How do I change that? And again, faith is a big part of us. You have to go back and sit with yourself, sit with God or whatever. I don't, but take the time away in silence. And the problem is we have these things that we call smartphones that ding. And that's, I think, in social media, and we wonder why. Personally, I think this for me is a human health problem, not just
Right.
a financial problem. We are the richest country in the world, right? Or richest in general. And as a world, we're pretty rich, right?
Right.
In general, but yet our everything everything is blinking red. And if we don't understand how our money works, foundationally, it all flows into everything else, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm reading right now several books, and despite all of my education, I have never learned more about the energy and kind of the spiritual nature of money. I've never learned more about the system, the interrelationship, the fact that the government and the financial sector are inextricably linked, not just here in the United States, but around the world. We are all connected. This is a spoiler alert that we continue to see when things blink red in one place. Inevitably, it happens in another. I've never learned so much than I have, quite frankly, falling down the rabbit hole of crypto to even figure out why. First of all, where is it? Why is it? Why do we need it? It seems like my dollar is just fine. I don't get it. It goes back to something that that was 6 years ago. Boy, oh boy, do I get it. When you think about how much we have turned over without understanding. The fact that if I asked somebody in my class right now to write a check, they would look at me like, should I send it by carrier pigeon? Like I remember last year, it's like someone asked for a cancel check to set up like a routing and an account. I was like, I don't have a checkbook. At least I know what it is. I know what a register is. I know what a ledger is. It's not difficult for me to figure out. I used to fill one out, but just the idea of turning it over without understanding consequence. People, long story short, always ask me, what's Bitcoin backed by? I was like, well, what's the dollar backed by? It's literally a system built on trust in all regards. And then you have to decide who you're going to trust.
It says it on the bill.
It literally says it. Did you read it? Right. It's not hidden. It's not hidden. It's hidden in plain sight, maybe, because actually people haven't touched a dollar in a long time because we already live with a lot of digital monies and digital ledgers. Actually, it's easier for you to get your money out, which makes it more likely that you could have a bank run with one bad tweet, right? It used to be a little more difficult back in the day, for sure.
Well, and with the dollar and where we're going now, and I have no idea, but things are moving faster. But even the dollar, the almighty dollar, you realize in the West, this whole Bitcoin thing and which one's going to survive and all of that. We did this before in the 1800s.
Absolutely.
We used to have Confederate currency and a different currency. Guess what happened? Things changed and we got rid of one. And I bet you those banks went under who had the Confederate money. And that's happened multiple times in our history. We need to look at history to say, what's the future? Now, are we going to move in that direction with that? Yes, I think so. But we're in the Wild West of it right now. Anyway, history is repeating itself. In the end, though, banks, this institution, there's a lot that we can learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
They are making money. Like, again, I'm an activist. I used to live in the south side of Chicago. What's interesting, if you said you're north side, well, the divide in Chicago, there's the north side, which is all the high rises, bank buildings, and the south side, which is all the payday loans, right? That was by design.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to start waking up and thinking through that. And again, take responsibility for our own actions in the system to overcome it. Now, I love life insurance because they're beginning with the end, literally the end in mind. And they are regulated by the states to make sure that they can't get in a bad place like this bank is doing. Like they can't do it.
Right.
They have to have it in liquidity. And that's a powerful thing. Anyway.
Not fractional insurance.
And I think that, that we can learn some on fractional to a degree, but when we are all about greed and making money,
Right.
that's a problem. And that's why we're seeing a lot of unrest.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not talking about politics here.
I mean,
Um,
yeah.
I'm not,
Little
um,
light stuff for the day, little light stuff.
yeah,
We have to start thinking about this. We cannot anesthetize ourselves away from the realities because it all at the end of the day, it is really about us. Quite frankly, we're the only ones we can actually control. And so refocusing our power and our energy and our focus on that so that we can fulfill the promise of why we as an individual are here. And the fact that if we don't fulfill that, it won't get done because we are unique in our own lane. And you actually need resources in order to do the work that you're here to do.
yeah,
So figuring that out, what that means for you, how to balance your perspective and your portfolio of freedom options so that
yeah,
you can do good work and do it well, take care of yourself and your family, and the fact that we don't have a planet B. So let's take care of
yeah,
that
right.
as well.
But again, this is why I love infinite banking and life insurance. It's reverse engineering, building a solid foundational asset. Now, again, people ask, well, what happens if this happens? I'm like, well, if zombies attack, then who cares about your life insurance policy, getting axed and run?
You got a bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, yeah, who cares about any of it? But I do think historically, and I was talking to my wife about this, they're going to look back at us in our time here and say, what the heck were these guys
I
doing?
know. I know.
And there's going to be people, again, I like the what would the Rockefellers do idea, is there's some people that are making it. Could we change the system? Absolutely. But there's other forces at play that want us to be asleep.
Right.
I'll end with this, but I was listening to University of Chicago podcast, Capitalism, and they said the sophisticated investors caused the SVB banking crisis because they pulled out the sophisticated ones, and that bank people are becoming more sophisticated in this thing. I was like, oh, so basically what you're saying is the banking system depends on stupid people to keep it going and to keep the Wizard of Oz kind of curtain going. And what we have to do, and this is on your listeners, is actually listen and wake up and ask me lots of questions. I'm here to be a teacher before I'm a salesperson. But does the policy, does the whatever help you reach your goals? But you have to know your goals, right? And so that's my goal as the heart of a teacher
Right.
to help you reach what you want to accomplish. Because in the end, it doesn't matter what currency we're in. In the end, it doesn't. None of it really matters.
Right. It's
Right.
really well said. Thank you for that. I think that's the perfect cap to this episode and the food for thought about getting still enough, to use your acronym, to figure out where we want to go with this end in mind, moving ourselves back to this point in time. And you don't have to do all the things, but just the next right step for you, which requires some knowledge and some skill. You don't have to know everything, but a sufficient amount of continuing financial information and education so that you take your power back.
And here's the thing: you will fail. There will be things that happen, but we want to mitigate the risk, but also fail forward than fail because you didn't do anything.
Wonderful. Tell my listeners how they can learn more about you and your work.
Yeah, so if you want to listen to us on YouTube, you can learn all kinds of stuff at Wealth Wisdom Financial Podcast. My wife is a lot more eloquent, I guess you could say. She's a writer, and so you go there, you'll hear both of us, and then you go to Wealth Wisdom FP, that's Financial Partners, wealthwisdomfp.com, and we have a report. If you go wealthwisdomfp.com/report, 5 simple steps to secure your financial future outside of a W-2. That's a report that we have. Building your foundational assets. So that way you can do, I mean, again, investing in crypto and doing the things that may help you. But your biggest investment is you. So protect that to then leverage and use.
Excellent. I will drop all of those links in the show notes. Brandon Neely, I appreciate you very much, sir. And I enjoyed this conversation very much. I think it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Tech Intersect podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you love it, please tell the world. If not, go ahead and tell me. And in either case, drop a comment or ping me on social media at IPProfEvans with the hashtag Tech Intersect. And finally, a quick reminder on digital safety. There are a lot of scammers out there impersonating me and others, and I need your help. Now hear this, and remember, I will never slide into your DMs to say peace and blessings or hey, and I will never reach out to solicit your time or your money on social media like ever. I'm not a trader. I am an educator and an attorney licensed in 4 states. Thank you very much. I'm here to inform, inspire, and empower. No cap and definitely no Forex. So be careful, make good choices, and remember, I developed an entire free masterclass about the topic of digital safety in the crypto space. So check out secureyourcryptobag.com for more information. That's secureyourcryptobag.com. All right, that's all for this episode. Until next time, continue to shine.